Building a business during a crisis gets a lot of attention. But what we don't talk about enough is what happens after the crisis. When opportunity is everywhere, expectations are huge, and focus becomes the real challenge. Welcome to Deals with Heels. I'm Debra, your host. Today's guest has lived through reinvention more than once, professionally and personally, and built a business by being unapologetically herself, even when it would have been easier to just blend in. Rachel Minion is the founder of Rockstar and Moon, a B2B marketing agency known for its direct approach and focus on helping companies grow without becoming dependent. Today, we're talking about authenticity in marketing, focus under pressure, and how leaders decide what actually matters when growth is on the table. Welcome to the show, Rachel. I am so happy to have you on the show, and we laughed so hard in the prep when we were getting situated that I know this is going to be such a fantastic conversation. And I want to start with talking about reinvention without really romanticizing it, because it's not always, we all look back at it and think, oh, I made it through and I'm so transformed. And the whole time we were in quicksand and mud. And it's often not pretty. And you have shared your story about turning a side hustle into a real business. What part of that transition doesn't get talked about enough?
I think the hardest part of the entire transition that nobody ever told me is that you're allowed to build the business of your dreams. Doing it from the survival mode, it works for so long, right? We're hustling, we're grinding, we're doing all the things, we're bringing on all the clients, then we're doing client delivery, and then we're going. And it's this hustle that doesn't stop. And then you build an entire business that's around you and focused on you, and you are the bottleneck. And then you look back and you're like, wait, I built this and this is really cool, but this isn't what I want to do every day. So what do? You are allowed to build the business of your dreams and being able to refocus that and be able to iterate and figure out, okay, let me test this and see, is this going to work, not work? How do I feel about this? It's almost like putting on a new pair of clothes, right? And seeing how does all this fit and does it make me feel good and look good? I don't know.
Right. And sometimes what feels comfortable isn't right.
And you don't know until you know.
That is exactly true. What surprised you the most about yourself once your business really started growing?
I think the weirdest thing that I have learned about myself is that my clients love me for my bluntness, my boldness. I'm just going to be honest and transparent and tell you like it is. I never expected that. I've always held back. I've always been the yes person. Let me go do that. So let me go do that. But no one respects you for doing that. They're great. That task is done, but they're not going to come look at you as some expert who's going to push back on them and say, hey, wait, you want me to do this and there's no point. You are wasting my time and yours. What if we did this? What if we build on this? How do we think about this in the right way? You're asking the wrong questions. Let's look at this. And being able to do that without fear is hard, right? The
It's
first time when you
it's
push back.
really hard to do. It is really hard to do. And my audience has heard me talk about how I watered myself down to make other
Mhm.
people feel comfortable. And then that watered down version of me felt comfortable. And then if I said something that I was naturally me, then I was like, oh my God, I might have to go. Well, did I make them mad? I mean, I spent a lot of time in that space, some decades in that space before I found my way out. That's what's so fabulous about what you said is your people are the ones that appreciate your directness. And sometimes I think I just pissed off everybody in this room by being direct, but I was honest and I was true to myself, and I'm not going to apologize for it because what I said was right.
I spent so many years in corporate. I spent time at Ticketmaster where we're all against the man, right? We joined Ticketmaster because we were against the man, but it's actually working for the man. And they have layers upon layers upon layers upon layers of stakeholders that then you have to play the game to get your project prioritized. By the end, it was like, wait a minute, this just doesn't feel genuine. It doesn't feel like I can make an impact. Can we make an impact if our hands are tied and we're not speaking up to make change? And even if you do speak up, you need to go up 12 levels to be able to make that happen. And it's crazy.
because everyone in between is defensive. And I excelled in corporate America because I'm very good at what I do. I was terrible at navigating corporate America. I'm honest and direct and blunt, and there's politics involved, and there's schmoozing and manipulating, and there's all of that. I sucked at that so bad. I wasn't nuanced at all. When I started to build my business, when I was at the very lowest bottom of my life and starting over, when I started building my business, it before I went, I did some temp work and did some corporate stuff, and I was like, "I don't ever want to be here again." I suck at it now. I'm just not good at playing that game. Doesn't feel I mean, I could be good at it. It doesn't feel authentic and right to me, and so it's just not a happy place for me.
I don't think I ever wanted to be good at it. I just wanted to, I don't know what the word is. But I will tell you, towards the end of my tenure at Ticketmaster, one of the roles that I had, they suggested that I help out and start helping executives plan travel. And I said, wait a minute. I'm running a division of marketing for Ticketmaster. This is not my skill set in any way, shape, and form. Getting in somebody's numbers, and then of course the flight I'm going to book is wrong. And what if it's like I screw up my own travel? I'm not the right person for this. And when I finally pushed back into something that I knew I should not be getting involved in because this would upset every executive ever, it would. Like I just not even worth trying anymore. Just looked at me, called me a princess, and I was like, "Yes, I will own this. We're
Hey,
not gonna
man,
go down a path."
if you want everyone's travel to be screwed up, then put me in charge of it because I'm creative. I'm not systems and all of the yeah, no, 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 no. I would not be good at that either. I wanna talk about authenticity. I talk about it a lot at the show, and I wanna talk about how it costs something to be authentic. When you're standing true to yourself, it's gonna cost things that likely are okay. You're known for being very direct and unapologetic. What has that cost you sometimes in business?
I think it's cost me relationships that I wasn't supposed to have. I think
Great answer. That's what I would say too.
see so many red flags that we ignore because we're trying to do what's right for our company. We're trying to do what's right for their business. They were trying to do any of those things. And when you're ignoring those red flags, you're now put yourself into a situation that is not pleasant. It's not exciting. And now either you speak up and you be who you are, or you have to be quiet. And we were put in a really terrible position by a client a few years ago. And they asked us, after working with their team, to write them a memo of the pros and cons of every single member of the team. And I was not comfortable doing this. I was not interested in it. I was not comfortable. This is not our role. We're not your HR, we're your marketing team. But they had us, they pushed and required it. And so we did it. And instead of having a conversation about it, he sent it to specific team members of our feedback. Now, we
Just
knew we
threw
shouldn't
you
have done
right
it.
in the hot grease.
100%. And now getting the project finished that we were working on that was almost to the end became the biggest roadblock ever. So there's no way we were going to be successful. And you know what? Had we just been authentic and told them where to shove that memo before we even spent time on it, it would have been fine.
But boy, that fear of loss of future revenue, fear of pissing off the client and all of that kind of scarcity mindset got in there. And boy, anytime you're working in that, if it feels off, it is. And if you force it, it will end in disaster. Even if that's just lowering your price, getting out of your brand container and saying, okay, well, this is who I work with, but somebody wants to work with me, but they want to pay this. Maybe I've had churn and I need business real quick. Don't do it. It's a test. Don't do it. Don't drop out because you will end up working so hard. I had a client in a recent conversation, and they were talking about how, well, sometimes I will go under my price range for a startup business, for somebody just getting out there. And my point to him was, I learned this lesson the hard way. And that is they have lots of questions and they need lots of time. And you lowered your price thinking they'll need less of my time because they're new. And I strongly suggested, no, 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 no. You might want to even remove them or do like the beginning planning for them and walk away, because I did that and it did not take long at all for me to realize this jerk wants to talk to me 7 times a day.
And
Uh,
feels entitled to do so.
Yes, that's the thing. They feel because they are paying for your services, but they don't have clear boundaries set. They haven't been a business owner for long enough. And I think we all struggle with setting those boundaries and staying authentic. I want to talk a little bit about that. How do you stay within that kind of container and hold that boundary? Sometimes you get pressure. I get pressure sometimes. I really want to work with you. Well, it's not the right time yet.
I think what I have done to work with the boundary is rework the services and what we serve and how we serve it. I want to help the whole world. It is my problem. That is my biggest correction that I need to make. And I know this. But we've taken our done for you program and created a done with you program. And then we still had prospects coming to us and saying, hey, but I really want to work with you, but I can't afford that. So now we've made that a DIY program. And if I can take the essence of the same thing and bring it down, and how do we do that? That then keeps my boundary in that I'm not going to discount the price to nothing for it, but I'm going to give you just less of me, less of my team, less of all the things. And if this works for you, phenomenal, because that will help you grow your business to where you can get to the middle tier. Then you can get to the top tier, and we can do that. And then I feel confident that I've done the best that I can. Definitely not the right answer, not drawing a real boundary, but it's what keeps me going.
I think if you separate, you have that smaller package, that do it DIY package, and you can hold the boundary and not answer the questions and not take the call. That's the real boundary. And presenting that, and here you go. When you're ready to move forward to the next step, let's talk. And then every time they call to talk, we're talking about the next step, which is paid engagement.
That's
And,
it.
that's what I told my client, this gentleman that I was working with. It was, you should next step that, right? Here's what I can do very specifically. Everything else is the next step.
And I think what's interesting is if we can draw that, create that, and make that model work for all of us, then we've helped them start to be successful. Most of the prospects only need 1 to 2 more clients. There isn't a ton that they need to do to make that happen. But what happens when they have that? How do they keep the machine going? That's where you're going to need me even more.
Right. I remember when I first started my agency, I can do every kind of marketing. So I wasn't sure kind of, you were in corporate, so you end up learning to do almost everything. And I wanted to help people. And so I would agree to do this. I would agree to do this. And it's taken within the last year for me to really hone that down to what, one, I want to do, two, what I'm good at versus what they think they want, and three, letting other people, other agencies handle the part that I don't want to do and bill. And I
Oh,
always intended to do that, but it was difficult for me not to do what the client asked and walk away. And so, but now I'm like, no, I don't do that. Exactly. I do the strategy before that. And then you can
Mhm.
take that and to your content creator or to your whatever. And that helped me. But it is a difficult thing for people to do. And I think it's difficult for women because we're conditioned by society to help everybody and to make just sacrifice. And yeah, having to step back from that. What has helped you in your business kind of maintain that authenticity? I think you just maybe have it naturally. I wrote this question, and now that I've talked about it, I'm like, I think she just has that naturally. You just stepped into your confidence and stood in it and said, I'm just not watering it down anymore. It's too uncomfortable.
Well, that's it. And otherwise, I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't feeling good. And pretending to be somebody I'm not just does not come easily to me. And, in the world of corporate, I could smile, a grin, and say, "This is so great. This is wonderful. We're going to make $1 million." But I don't believe it. And if I don't believe it, then I'm not going to put any effort or energy into it. And you're paying me for nothing. So I would rather make sure that I'm doing something that can be really impactful and just telling it like it is.
I agree. Honesty, often people don't want to hear it, but if you say it and stick with it and explain your rationale, even if they walk away going, yeah, she didn't understand all my feelings, then they'll eventually come back. I want to talk about staying focused in a world of opportunity. And one of the things you talk about are the big three. How did you learn to prioritize when everything out there felt urgent, right? Everything feels like I got to get this done. I need all of this done today. How did you use your big three to get that priority?
So I fell in love with the big three, and not by any means necessary. Like, it came because I didn't have another option. So I surrounded myself with a team and I built that team together. And it was, how do we get the right things done for the clients? How do we get the right things done for the clients? And getting my team rallied around, all we care about are these three things. I don't care about anything else. It doesn't matter. This is what our wins are going to be. Now, team, what do we need to do to get from A to B on priority one? We get all the ideas on the whiteboard. We know where we're going. Okay, great. We cross off the ones that we know are just a waste of time. And the things that'll move the lever faster, we do those. All the low hanging fruit, we knock out. Then we go to the next priority and really think through that. And how does that interact with the first priority? Are we doing the same things, different things? Are they in alignment? And what we find by talking through each of the priorities and what we want to be able to do to get there is that the things that we use to measure were bullshit. It just didn't it isn't anything that was real. It wasn't anything that was ever gonna move the lever. So what is it that we wanna achieve, and what's that 1 or 2 metrics that go with it? And then, can we look at this in a different way and get more creative about how we're solving the problem? Because otherwise, you're just doing a series of tasks, and nobody wants to do a series of tasks that are gonna get them nowhere because it's just running on a treadmill all day, every day to put out the fires, to do this, to do that. Whereas if we're thinking in a smarter way and a client says, "Well, I just need social media." No, you don't. You need 6 new clients, you need 25 calls, you need this, you need that. This is where our focus should be.
And that is so true for life in general, even, right? If you try to force the plan, the path to the destination, often you get met with obstacles because that's not the right path you're supposed to take there. And when a client comes to me and says, well, we just need someone for social media, I always want to start with, how do you know social media is where you're supposed to be? What
Mhm.
strategy? Can I see your strategy? Did you have a whole plan that talked about the demographics of what social media platforms there are? And so I think they get stuck on a buzzword. And then that buzzword is what everybody thinks they want. And I have met with so many businesses that are business to business, like what you work with. And when I say this one gentleman, he had the most niche business to business audience I've ever worked with. There might be 15 people in the entire state of Oklahoma the man can sell to, right? I mean, let's widen this to nationwide, shall we? So we actually have some prospects to talk about. He had spent $25,000. He had a nice video that was at least horizontally
Okay.
focused, right? Because those can be made to fit in vertical, but you can't buy
Mhm.
television, video, any street, no paid ads can be done vertically unless it's on social media. The entire rest of it was spent on social media through an agency. And it's this omnipresent social media strategy, which means your target isn't really on here. We're going to throw a lot of money in here to see,
To
hopefully.
test.
And I think part of that was pride. He had an invention that he had that was fantastic, and he wanted to get the word out. I need to get the word out. Well, you can get the word out on social media, but the only people that really matter that they hear the word are the 15 people that can buy your client to buy your product. Other than that, everybody looking at your video and saying that's so cool, attaboy, is just vanity and pride. The same. So why there's no way that social media agency didn't know that they were taking that man's money and it wasn't going to work. I told him, take every ounce of money that you've spent and that you're going to plan on spending with an agency and spend it at your national convention. Get a nice sized booth, get your display, because everyone you can sell to in the country will be there. And they're not going to be anywhere else. And no, they're not on Facebook. You have no idea if they're on Facebook.
I
Don't spend
think
$20,000 there, but that's what he did.
And I think the hardest part is when it comes to an agency, having somebody with integrity that you can trust and not a churn and burn agency. That churn and burn agency took it. They knew exactly what they were doing with it. They knew that they weren't going to get him any clients and then they were going to be on to the next. And that's
Yes.
how they build their cash flow.
I call that commission breath. They need money, right? I need clients. We all need clients. But when you take one that's not meant for you, it clogs it up for everything else. His great clients moved on to somebody else, people that were going to be with that agency for years. He missed because he clogged it up with this guy that he couldn't really help. Oh, he helped him. He helped him learn what not to do. That's what he helped him with.
That's it.
I can't take that. My emotional integrity will not allow me to take that client's money if I can't really help them. So it's important that you find an agency that is blunt and honest and authentic. I've also had them say, well, yeah, they told me they didn't know for sure if it would work. And you went ahead and did it and spent thousands of dollars with them. I don't understand the mindset behind that.
At least they told him that. If they didn't say that, I don't know. I mean, that's a little bit of a disclaimer that they didn't know what they were doing.
We could do this omnipresent strategy. That might work.
The first time I heard that was in a Verizon executive meeting way back. And, the idea is that we recognize you and we see you everywhere, right? So if you're on our website, we know that you're an iPhone user, so we don't show you an Android. That makes sense. When we walk into the store, we know who you are because you have a Verizon phone. It makes sense. These things make sense to me. An omnipresent strategy for someone that nobody knows and doesn't have a brand presence, doesn't have any of those things, there's no awareness of that there's even probably this problem, is crazy.
It is crazy. And I'm like the opposite of an omnipresent strategy. I want to be as targeted as I could and still have volume enough to let the AI algorithms work,
You
right?
know,
For them to learn. I need to have volume in there. I can't say we're going to send digital ads only to these 15 people because you do have to have volume in there. But so the opposite of that, the last thing I want is an omnipresent strategy. I want to do this quarter, this one, and then this quarter, this one. And so I don't get it. I understand it from an agency owner perspective and from their sales, because I'm a sales coach. I understand their sales culture and them trying to build their business as well. They're just not doing it authentically. They're doing it with somebody else's customers.
well, I think the hard part is once you have that buzzword, you don't ever stop using it. And buzzwords are such garbage. It doesn't mean anything. And everybody wants that new shiny thing. Like, I just want to be on TikTok or I just want to be omnipresent or no, you just need an expert to help you get from A to B who can actually do the work.
Yes, and know where your target is and put all of your attention towards where they're going to be, not where visibility is. Visibility's not the answer. Such a pet peeve of mine, and I know it is yours too, because your business to business specialty, you're not putting a bunch of people on Facebook
Mhm.
for business to business. And so many people, they just think that's where they need to be. Well, everybody says I need to be on social media.
It's so frustrating. And I think, my personal strategy is just to have people aware of who their ideal target is and what do they do during the day. Like, if you want to be on Facebook, but know who the target is who's going to be there. And quite frankly, I'm not going to stop my scroll for something that's business unless you really caught my attention. If it's an ad, not happening. But if it's like Bobby down the street and his, like a picture of his dog, I'm stopping. You're not going to get my attention otherwise on Facebook.
Probably not me either. You end up with too much of it, but there are some business to consumer people that do fairly well, but man, it is saturated in that. And
Mhm.
if you're paying to reach people that are already your followers, that's a foolish, but there's that too. I'm like, why am I getting your ad? I already follow you. Why would you pay to reach me at this point when you can reach me for free? So, yes, totally on the same page there and have been talking almost 30 minutes about all of it. And I want to come in and talk about specifically your leadership and your legacy. How do you want people to feel after they've worked with you?
I want them to know that we've made impact. And I want that impact to be something so big that they notice it. I want that feeling to be, it goes beyond wow. It's like, remember when we were kids and walking into a Toys R Us store and you're just, woo, let's go. That, that's how I want it to feel.
That's awesome. I mean, wouldn't it be great? I also sometimes say I want people to feel like vindicated and like I've made a good decision because this is working and have all those feelings of self reinforcement that they made a good decision because that really holds it too. Sometimes excitement's harder to hold on to, even though results are consistent.
We had a client who his entire belief is that marketing doesn't work. Marketing doesn't work, but he knew he had to spend money doing it. He didn't want to redo the website. He didn't want to do this. He was never going to get a lead from the website. He was never going to get this and that and the other.
Womp womp.
Such a pleasant conversation every single time. And everything's an uphill battle, but I am blunt. I am honest. I am very bold with what I say. And within 3 weeks of launching, the first client came from a website form. And imagine his surprise that this is a possibility. I didn't promise it. None of those things. And so now he says, I could really be wrong in every assumption that I have. And I kept telling you, we tried it, we tried it, we tried it. It didn't matter. It wasn't ever going to work. And then it does. And so I think I believe that you're right. And I'm okay with whatever choices you make now. But I had a moment where I jumped out of my skin that this came through and like ran around the room because
That's
I didn't think it was even possible.
That's a victim of bad marketing right there. I think a lot of the confusion happens around branding. So when I first started, 1990, we did demand building demand for your products and services and for you as provider of choice. And that has stayed my spot. Then it went into image. We're working on our image. It's our image that we're working on. And now it's branding. And it's a little bit further now just because the amount of content that's out there. And there's a lot of content creators that work on visibility. And there are clients that just visibility can be good. But for business clients, most of the time, just pure visibility isn't where it's at. And so I think branding gets a bad rap, but it's because they did it to themselves by talking about branding. Branding is content that doesn't sell. Branding. And if it isn't building demand as a part of the sales cycle, it's not worth doing. Period.
No, I think the worst part about branding is, and we've worked with a business coach who would have all the different branding and creative agencies together. And the hardest problem they had is how do you tie a brand to ROI? And what do you do? And how do you sell it? And what do you do? Nobody's going to go spend money on a cost center willingly, like, oh, great, let's go do that. But at the same time, there is no new CMO that starts a job that doesn't redo the website in their first week and say, this is a problem. We have to fix the entire website and rebuild it from scratch. And that's my first cost center.
Yep. And often not a requirement, but editing a different website is often not something that you're allowed to do. Even changing the copy sometimes can be difficult. And from that agency perspective, I'm a branding agency. I want to keep clients as long as I can. How can we transition that into content and something that's ongoing that's more than just the logo and more than the website? And how can we retain and keep going? And so I understand how it happens. And it's what I mean, I do expert brand authority coaching. That's different. It's a specific part of your brand. And I think branding's important. I just think branding content isn't. I think it has to be part of the sales cycle. It has to build demand. Where do you see that breaking down for clients?
Well, what's interesting for me is that our clients could care less about a brand. Our clients, it's just a logo. It's just a this. I don't care what the colors are. It doesn't matter. Go get me clients. And I think just establishing who they are, why they exist is key because that informs everything else we do. And we create the tone and style and how should we come across to this audience. And pulling that together. Now everything else that we do for them to go get them wins, phenomenal. But I think what has been interesting in my experience with clients is most of my clients have no idea what pain point they're actually fixing for their clients. They have an idea of it. So we like to play a game, and we started in the beginning with most of our engagements on what they actually do versus what their clients think they do because they're speaking in language that doesn't resonate with their clients. And it puts them so far in outfield, it doesn't matter. They'll never be considered. But if we start speaking in the language, in the right tone, in the right things, then every value that we have reflects that. It feels so close to home that it just wins every time.
That's fantastic. I completely agree with that. Especially honing in on target customers, target client categories of customers that aren't found all in the same place, nor do they respond to the same message. And your brand isn't going to connect with all of them. It just doesn't work that way. So having that targeting, building demand, what kind of messages does this particular target like and respond to versus, and then how much of it have you done? I always say, and my audience is probably sick of hearing me saying it, but eventually y'all will get it too. And that is that sales is a transfer of enthusiasm. And if I can make someone, well, it doesn't matter if it's with media to the masses or on a one-to-one level or in PR, if I can make someone feel enthusiastic about what I'm doing, have an emotional connection with them, then I can sell them. I can get a referral from them. I can get them to pay attention to my messaging. The problem is that if you haven't done the prep work, and you just come at them enthusiastically, that feels like pressure. And they don't respond to that. So that prep work, that demand building and prep work is so important. And those messages don't happen unless you're really with someone and an agency that can dive into that and find that. They got to have some sales experience. You got to be like you and I were there with accountability, with our butts in the seat, having long discussions about whether or not our marketing efforts were successful with
Take, for
operations.
example, Cheerios. Just throwing it out there. But remember Cheerios, it was just aimed towards kids and it was always a kid's cereal for babies
It
and,
was my favorite
when
when
they're
I was a
young.
child, my mom told me.
Mine too. But think about how they've had to change that narrative to hit the pain point of heart patients, even including hearts in the box, so that you're now
Mhm.
connecting that message with the motivation. And yes, it's written on the back that it's heart healthy and whatever. Do we believe it? I have no idea. But they have spent the time to build that demand so it isn't just kids. And it's an interesting way that they've split the messaging and they've split the direction that they speak about it in not only our commercials, but you see it written on the box. You see it everywhere. And it's a really cool way that they've done that.
Yes, targeting those specific buying personalities and what that pain point is for that specific one and the messaging. It's a beautiful example and a great place because the time is up for us to end. But before we move on, I want to give you the chance to tell everyone how they can find out more about the Rockstar Agency. What a cool name, obviously. And if you're on video, you can see she's got some guitars in the background, which are super cool and autographed by stars. So that's cool too. Tell us how we can reach out, the best way to contact you, and all the good stuff.
You can find me at rachelminion.com. You can find more about Rockstar Moon, the marketing agency, at rockstarmoon.com.
That's awesome. Now, are you on social media? You're on LinkedIn.
I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook.
Okay, awesome. Well, we will link to all of Rachel's stuff in the show notes. And so everybody can find her in the platform that's best for you. And if this conversation resonated with you, especially the parts about focus, authenticity, and building momentum without chaos, then my work will live on beyond this podcast and your growth. Through Hexagon Media, I help business owners find and build real demand by clarifying their messages, earning trust, and creating marketing that actually supports sustainable growth. Very similar to what my buddy Rachel does too. You can learn more about my work at hexagonmedia.net, and you will find a link in the show notes as well. Thank you, Rachel, for coming on the show. Until next time, everyone, stand strong in your power, especially when it gets uncomfortable. And we're out. We did it.